Live from Edmonton's south side, just off the vibrant 99th Street, a stone's throw from the Labatt Brewery, it's the Second Floor Podcast.
As everyone just heard, Mr. Owen Bishop had just introduced the Second Floor. Owen is an actor in the city.
Mm-hmm.
He's also a screenwriter. He also does many, many different things in the arts world that we're going to dive into. And Owen, man, I appreciate you coming on the Second Floor.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for that beautiful intro. It's definitely going to be different from the rest. So, Owen, my man, let's get into your story a little bit. I've known you for a little bit now. We've worked together on some projects. You're an actor in the city.
That's right.
Take me back before you got into acting and before you got into the theater and the writing and all of that. Take me back to kind of how it all started.
Well, I think my very first performance was at the age of 5 years old when I was at the Citadel. And we attended Grease, and I decided to sing and dance along to Grease Lightning while on my mom's lap in the audience.
Nice.
Nobody liked it.
Yeah.
I think my mom might have been fond of it, but people paying, $90 for a ticket were probably less than enthusiastic about the screaming 5-year-old.
Yeah.
But I thought for a long time that I would go into law, just because I have, my grandparents were in law, both my parents are lawyers. There's, I think, 7 lawyers in my family tree if you look out far enough.
Yeah.
And then in junior high, I got into classical music.
Really?
Yeah, pretty heavily. I played trumpet for 6 years through junior high and high
way.
school. Yeah.
Oh, sick.
Yeah, and I still do.
Yeah.
But my mother would always cart me off to the foot theater school classes when I was 5 and 6 years old, because I'd be singing and dancing in the kitchen. She'd be like, "All right, go, get rid of this energy somewhere else and let me think."
Yeah.
And I would kick and scream all the way there, and then I'd have an amazing time.
Yeah.
And theater was always sort of something that I was really interested in, but I never really thought of as a career, just because I guess I never had the affirmation that I should go into it.
Yeah.
And I remember having this conversation with my friend Miranda in social studies in grade 11, and just clicked on why don't I pursue this?
Yeah.
Why not? And I just started following avenues. I went and met with the drama teacher. I started doing performances in high school. I started looking for auditions online and things like that. And then I went to the U of A for a couple of years studying drama and history. Then I went out to Vancouver and studied acting at a conservatory called Studio 58. And then I moved back after that, and the rest is history.
Yeah. Yeah. So you've kind of done a number of things. Take me through some of the cool projects that you've been involved with, either in Edmonton or other places that you've acted in and whatnot. So
I've had an amazing opportunity to write and produce, and in some cases direct my own work in Alberta and outside of Alberta. The Edmonton Fringe is an amazing opportunity to showcase and workshop new work. And you get some really immediate and very tangible feedback, especially between 0 and 5 stars. People let you know exactly what they think of it.
Yeah.
I got to take part in something called the Pendley Shakespeare Festival out in England. It's a 3-week festival where you have to show up off book and you rehearse and stage a Shakespearean play in 5 days.
Oh, wow.
And then you open that show, and while you've opened the first one, you rehearse and stage the second one. And then once the first show closes, you open the second one.
Wow.
So it's
that's intense.
Yeah, a little under 3 weeks, and you open and close 2 shows.
Wow.
So it's a bit of a marathon, and it was very eye-opening, and it was a great opportunity to push my own limits and see what I was really capable of as an artist and as a professional. And I've lived in Vancouver, lived in Edmonton, lived in Calgary, and I've had the opportunity to work in all 3 cities. And when I was in school in Vancouver, they brought in a number of people for our final shows to create new works. And so we were not only part of the workshopping process, but they were taking our input and helping create those shows. And after we performed them at school, they went on and toured professionally around Vancouver and BC.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was a really fun process to be a part of.
Yeah. What part of acting do you truly like? Like, I mean, there's so many different parts to it. There's so many different, I guess not even acting in general. I guess you do write,
Mm-hmm.
you act.
Yeah.
You're part of the theater process. What do you like the most?
I mean, they're all such different beasts.
Yeah.
It's, the reason I'm involved in so many different avenues is because I get something from each of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
On the production side, I mean, part of it is the necessity of creating your own work when nobody else will hire you. On the writing side, it's crafting something that I find interesting.
Yeah.
What I love about acting is this sort of collective agreement when you go into the room of meeting these other people who also don't know what's going to happen, and say, okay, we've got the words, let's tell a story.
Mm-hmm.
And when you meet the right people, you can bounce ideas off of them, and you can create something really, really amazing.
Mm-hmm. How stable is acting in Alberta in general? Because you've been here for a while,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously you've done projects elsewhere. How do you feel? How's the market? I don't know, so I just want to ask, like, how does it fare as, pursuing it as a career?
I mean, at times it does feel sort of like a late stage Jenga game, like it sort of collapses any moment.
Yeah.
The reality is that so many artists have to work different jobs in order to pursue that artistic avenue and to survive, really. I heard a statistic on the radio that something like 3% of musicians in Canada are able to sustain themselves off of their music alone.
Wow.
Which is obviously not a lot, and I wouldn't be surprised if it was the same for actors.
Yeah.
There are some amazing opportunities out there for actors. Like the Stratford Festival has 9-month runs, and that's a great source of income for some actors. But the reality is that there's way more actors than there are jobs available, and a lot of the jobs that are available, they don't pay the full sort of minimum requirements to live. So it really is a pursuit of passion.
Yeah.
If you want to stick it out in this game, it is going to require a lot of sacrifices, and it's going to require a lot of hard decisions, and it does come with a lifestyle that is a little bit up in the air.
Yeah. When did you make that decision to not pursue being a lawyer or pursuing a kind of a regular 9-to-5 to saying, you know what, I love this, and I want to kind of continue doing this, and I'll do whatever it takes? When was that kind of time or moment? Is there a specific moment, or did it build up? What was the kind of...
I think it's a combination of a few things.
Okay.
I mean, a big one is that my mom went back to law school when she was 45.
Oh wow.
So so she did her law school when I was in my teens. So I saw just how difficult law school actually was, and that was definitely a big detriment to me ever going.
Yeah.
But the other side of it is that every job I've ever worked, I've always gotten bored. Every time I have to go back in and do the same thing 9-to-5 over and over, it loses a luster for me. And after a while, it really is just sort of slogging away, and it's something that's just so unappealing to me. And the beautiful thing about acting and creating and the arts in general is that it's always a challenge to get those projects made. It's always a challenge to get those jobs. But once you do get into the room, it's new every time. And good acting, especially theater acting, good acting thrives on it being fresh every single night. And I've never done something like a 6 or 7 month run, or one of the really, really long runs that you see down in the States sometimes. But the allure of acting to me is that it's never going to be the same, and it doesn't have that stability, which, as odd as it sounds, is something that's almost a little bit appealing.
Yeah. It keeps things fresh. It's very lively work.
Absolutely, yeah.
You have to have your body and your mind in it. And I know this because when I was back in the day, I don't know if I told you this, but I started a TV show called The Hero's Journey.
Really?
I tried back in 2000. It was 2010, 2011.
No way.
I was like, I was in sciences, and I wanted to get some sort of creative outlet. And I've always liked acting, and I've always loved video production.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, why don't I start my own TV series or web series? Because YouTube was just like on the rise at that time, right? Yeah. So I was like, I'll just try to start my own TV show, and I'll act in it, and I'll direct it, and I'll get all actors, and I'll get the writers, and frankly, I had no idea what the fuck I was doing. Like, nothing. I had no idea. I didn't even know how the camera worked at that time. So long story short, I got like 10 people,
Yeah.
and we tried shooting a pilot episode, and I had Chase Axton
Oh yeah.
to shoot the first episode. And again, I had no idea what the hell I was doing, but long story short, it kind of fell through. But that's how I eventually got into video production and things like that. I was like, okay, I really like this. And then that's when I slowly started getting into it. So, yeah.
The fact that you had that whole thing fall through, but you still pursue the path.
It.
I mean, that's a pretty good sign.
Yeah, and it was one of those learning lessons. Like, oh shit, like I actually like this. I was like, this is completely different from biology.
Yeah.
Studying, right? So, no, I can relate on that front. But take me through what are some of the struggles you kind of go through as an actor? Like, what are some of the things that you kind of go through being, I guess, in Alberta too? I understand, it's tough, and there's different projects here and there, and sometimes you might not get a project. But what are the kind of struggles you kind of go through? I kind of want to get into that, because I just want to know out of curiosity of, you've done so many different projects, and each project has its own challenges, and each project has its own kind of way it kind of goes.
Yeah.
How do you as an actor adapt? I know that's your job to kind of do what the project is about, but how do you kind of mold it in a way of you being you and then going through those struggles? What's that like?
Well, to speak to like the different projects you encounter, I mean, the basics are usually all the same. It's all about storytelling. And I mean, there's never been a show that I've done where at sort of about halfway through the rehearsal process, I've just hated it.
Never.
Every show I've done, like I've gotten to that point, and I'm just like, I can't do this anymore. I do not belong here. They made a mistake. I hate this show. I should never have done this. I'm gonna go flip burgers or something. And then there's always this moment where it just sort of breaks open. I'm like, oh, okay, there we go. So it does require, at least at this point, a significant amount of struggle and sort of uncomfortableness.
Yeah.
To get to that point. And we did Macbeth back in January, and my friend Sam and I were taking a break from a big scene that we were rehearsing. It's like 18 pages long, and it's just going all over the place. This crazy argument, and we're sitting just off in this other room, and we're like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
How are we ever gonna get this anywhere close to good enough to show to people?
Yeah.
Because we were just both struggling so much with this scene.
Yeah.
And literally the next day we turned a corner, and it just became this beautiful piece of something we'd never thought it could be. And I think that's another one of the lovely things about acting and theater and the arts, is that it does require a lot of sort of personal journey along every single project that you take.
Yeah.
And yeah.
How much of it is improv?
Acting?
Or theater.
Theater? Well,
like you have let's just say you have a script,
yeah,
and you have to kind of follow the guideline of the story.
Yeah.
Right? But how much of that do you find that different directors or different projects require you to be very stringent and like you have to follow this and it has to be this way? Or are there other projects where it's just like, this is kind of the general way we want you to go, and then you do your thing?
I mean, it really depends on what the project is.
Yeah.
Like if you're doing something like Shakespeare, the words have been the same for about 400 years.
Yeah.
And there are people who will tell you that there's no there's no and there, it's an or.
Wow.
And obviously people cut huge chunks of it out just to make the night not be 4 hours long.
Yeah.
And then there are certain companies where if you don't get the lines exactly right, the stage manager will come to you and say, okay, on page 4 you said this, on page 5 you got this wrong.
Wow.
Yeah, they'll give you line outs after the show.
Oh, wow.
But back in October, I did my own one-man show in Calgary.
Yeah.
And because it's just me on stage, and I wrote it, and I didn't have it exactly memorized, there was a fair amount of rewriting as the show went on.
Yeah.
And my stage manager, Christy, was at the other end of the theater, and I could see her the whole time. And I remember, I think it was on like my second or third show, like I was feeling confident, and that cockiness sort of got the better of me, because I jumped like 8 pages.
Oh, no way.
And I heard her go, and I heard like pages flipping furiously behind the booth. And I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry, Christy.
Man.
Just trying to figure out where I am, to figure out where the next cue is supposed to be.
Yeah.
And I was trying to keep reciting the text and also trying to think what I skipped and how I can work all of that back in.
Oh man!
So improv definitely has its place in live theater, and that's that. You know, I love improv theater and like Dynasty, the rapid fire groups. They're all fantastic, and I love watching them work.
Yeah.
But it does get a little bit dicey when there's been this agreement made of, hey, these are the lines we're going to say. This is when we're going to say them.
Yeah.
I mean, there is obviously like a huge amount of play every night, and that's what keeps live theater so fresh and so fun.
Yeah.
And it is the good actors, they'll come out there and do it again for the first time and just make new discoveries. And I think it was Jeff Dunham described it as, you know, the train shows up at the station, you get on the train, and the text will take you to where you need to go. But like what you do on the train changes every night.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. I like that. That's very interesting. Yeah, because I don't really know. Like, I'm not super into theater. I never really got into it. I enjoy it. I've seen a couple shows.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I love learning about the technical things, like how you go through a script, and is it word by word, line by line, or when you get on stage or you're in front of a camera, do you improv it, and how much of that is you kind of taking it and making it your own versus I have to make sure I say and this line and this page, right? So yeah, I really enjoy that. What are you working on right now? What's in the works for Owen Bishop and his career?
I've got a number of projects on the go right now. I just found out yesterday that we got into the Edmonton Fringe again. And so my friend Joel Terrace and I, hi Joel, we're going to be partnering together to create another show. It's going to be called All You Need, and it's a conspiracy theory about the Beatles, told in the form of a one-man show. And it's going to be at the Grindstone Theatre. So I'll be working on that. I'm writing a couple of movie scripts at the moment. I'm working with the TV show Chew on This. And they're taping their first episode of the new season on Wednesday, actually.
Oh, sweet.
And then I've written a bunch of sketches as well that I'm going to get to take part in. So we're going to be shooting those shortly as well.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's amazing. How do you juggle multiple projects as an actor?
It's
how does that work? Where does your mind kind of...
I find that whoever sets the deadline the closest usually gets priority.
Gotcha.
And it has been a long journey of becoming accountable to myself, especially for the projects that I'm writing and performing in. And if it's just me and one other person working on it, then I know that if I don't have a script by this deadline, I'm going to put us both in a really difficult position. So it's sometimes it's just a matter of picking one, opening that document, and just typing until something worthwhile comes out.
Yeah.
If I have 4 hours to work on something and I have 4 different projects, I'll allot an hour to each one of them. Yeah. And then just do hard stop when the alarm goes off, type any final notes I have, then switch to something new. Yeah. It does require a fair amount of balance, and then work and writing and rehearsal and seeing family members and emerging from the basement and actually seeing sunlight and shopping for groceries. It's spinning a couple plates all at once.
How do you choose projects?
It usually isn't the project; it's usually the people.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And networking is such a huge, important part of acting and of being in any field, I think. Yeah. I've had the chance to get to know some really, really amazing people over the years in Edmonton and Calgary, and when they come to me with a project, it does have to interest me. They say, we're gonna produce a show of a guy just throwing buckets of paint on the sidewalk. I'll go, okay, that sounds fun. Maybe not for me, but usually it has to do with a lot of ideas percolating, and so I'll hear about them a lot before the idea is actually dropped. Gotcha. And so by the time it rolls around, I'll have had time to have that conversation with myself and know if it's right for me.
Interesting. So mostly it's due to kind of the people on set and the people that you're working with that kind of biases your decision on whether you decide to take a project on or not.
I mean, at this point in my career, I'm really open to taking a lot of projects on, just because I love learning. I love working with people. I love challenging myself, and I'm at that sort of that perfect spot of not overly busy, but I definitely have a lot on my plate that I can chew on.
Yeah.
So I don't think I've made enough mistakes yet to start turning down projects.
Gotcha.
So like I'll have a few more harrowing experiences, and I'll probably be a little bit more cautious in the future.
Yeah.
But at the moment, I'm usually pretty game for whatever people throw at me.
Yeah. Have you ever thought of, moving to a bigger city to pursue acting? Like, what's the end goal for you? Like, do you want to get into Hollywood? Is that a goal? What are your thoughts on Hollywood? Like, what's that all about?
It definitely is a potential goal. I think.
Yeah.
I think if I was going to go to Hollywood, I probably should have done it when I was 21 or 22.
Mm-hmm.
Getting a bit long in the tooth to hop down to LA and start
and figure it out.
Hacking away at it now. At the moment I'm back at the U of A and I'm taking a couple courses and finishing my degree. So my focus on that right now is just to get the piece of paper and set my future up to be possibly a little bit more stable.
Yeah.
I'm really open to see where life takes me at the moment, because I have the opportunity to work in England this summer potentially, and possibly in Vancouver and possibly in Toronto, and so
very cool.
I found that the best way for me to keep all my options open is to not try and solidify any future plans down the line. And so the adage of having a 5-year plan is going to set you up for success, but I find that working in the short term, as opposed to focusing on the long term, has been much more beneficial for my work.
Yeah, that's very interesting, because a lot of people would disagree and go the opposite.
Yeah.
Whereas in your field, I think it might be different, or I guess the way you're taking it is different.
Mm-hmm.
It's very interesting.
Yeah, because so much of what I want to do depends on the decisions of other people.
That's right.
That if I want to say, hey, I want to work for Mirvish in 5 years in Toronto, I think the first step would probably be moving to Toronto and doing shows there and getting noticed by Mirvish. Or the same thing with the Stratford Festival. But if I'm focusing all my energy towards that, I'm going to miss a lot of opportunities that are right in front of me.
Gotcha. I like that. That's something that people don't really consider, especially when they're trying to get to a certain spot. They overlook the opportunities that are in front of them.
Yeah.
Like, I need to go there.
Yeah, absolutely.
I need to go to LA to be an actor. Whereas maybe in their city that they're in, maybe not as big as LA, but there's hundreds of opportunities for acting gigs or whatever they're trying to pursue, but they're looking there. And
there's so many ways. Like, there's no textbook on how to be an actor. Well, that's not true. There are many, many books on how to be an actor, and a lot of them are terrible. But what I've bought a lot of books on how to be good at acting, and they all sort of have the same fluff in them. And I found the best way to learn is just to do it. And so if I went down to LA or if I went down to New York, I probably wouldn't have the opportunity to work as much as I do here.
Yeah. Have you been to LA?
I have.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Have you done anything down there acting wise, or
not acting wise? I've seen the sights and I've seen the city, and it's big and it's cold and it's intimidating, but it's also really exciting.
Yeah.
And I have friends who are based out of Edmonton who've done shows in New York, and people who are based out of Edmonton who have done movies in LA.
Yeah.
And so the world is getting a lot smaller now. And so the notion that you have to move to LA to make it big, I think, is something that's fading into the future, especially with the internet.
Yeah.
You can be a superstar from Antarctica if you really want to.
Yeah. Yeah. And how do you utilize that? I mean, as far as, being an actor, do you reach out lots to people online, to producers, to directors? Do you do any online auditions?
Oh yeah, I send self-tapes out all the time.
Do you?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
I have an agent based down in Calgary. And one thing they tell you in theater school is don't contact people over Facebook.
Okay.
You
really?
don't contact directors or producers over Facebook. It looks unprofessional, and it looks sort of like there are proper channels to go through. And I think that is also changing, because you and I met over Facebook, and and we've done half a dozen projects together now.
Yeah.
But if I was going to reach out to big producers in the theaters in Toronto and Edmonton and Vancouver, or down in LA, through Facebook isn't the way to do it. So I do have my agent for things like the union films, and so I send out self-tapes, and it's as many irons as you can get into the fire.
Yeah.
And I don't use Facebook a whole lot for professional work anyway. I find that my Instagram is a much better snapshot of what I do acting wise.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Yeah, I just didn't know that. Really, I didn't know that like that was a thing. Like not being able to contact, or you shouldn't. You can contact, but you shouldn't contact big directors or people that are in the industry.
And naturally, that has that's sort of like what your personal relationship with them is.
Yeah, how much of that is like in? I'm curious. How much of that is like, for example, let's just say I'm a big director and I have a big video project or like a movie.
Yeah.
And my relationship with you, there's probably a big bias then, hey?
Oh,
you
yeah.
think like if I know you as an actor, I as this big movie producer would be like more inclined to just bring you on than
patronage plays a huge role.
It does.
Yeah.
It does.
So the whole saying is it's not what you know, it's who you know. What's way more important is who knows you.
I like that.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, I feel like Larry King now, and I'm just so. But thank you for coming out today. I didn't watch enough of him to do a good impression, but I just wanted to get the posture.
No, you I like the you do a good job on the voice.
Oh, thank you.
I know you've done a couple different reenactments.
I've done Gilbert Gottfried for you a few times.
Do it. Let's do it. Let's hear it.
I have to back up a little bit.
Okay.
This one is never quiet. It's very loud, so if I'm next to the microphone, I will blow the speakers of whoever is listening.
That's amazing.
I mean, you can't do that one for more than about a minute because it feels like you're gargling barbed wire.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy. That takes talent, man.
Thank you.
Yeah, it does.
It's
would you get into more voice acting?
Yeah, it's something that really interests me,
Yeah.
and I've had people tell me that I should do like ASMR things, like and now you're just gonna fall asleep and just gonna unwrap a little candy for you and just gonna listen. There's some weird nonsense like that.
That's hilarious.
There's like speaking in a really low monotone to help people fall asleep, but
Yeah.
I've done a little bit of voiceover work and.
Come to me.
Yeah.
Hey, what you doing over there? Come on, I got some. You want to see something fun? Come here.
No, you definitely. I think you'd be honestly fit to be a voice actor too.
I appreciate
that. Take it either way.
I'm using this as a demo tape for
exactly.
voice
just
acting.
use this,
Yeah.
the 30 seconds that we just had here to just like cut and just
just send it off to them.
Yeah, send it off to people. No, that's awesome, man. So, would you? Do you want to stay? Do you want to stay in Edmonton and act? For. Would you want to stay here and try to build something here, or would you prefer a bigger city?
I mean, I'm open to. I've considered a lot of different options.
Yeah.
And Edmonton's a fantastic place to create your own work. Mm-hmm. It's got a really, really amazing mentality for new. Not work that's been standing on its name for the past however many decades.
Yeah.
And that's why the Edmonton Fringe is the second biggest in the world.
Oh wow!
Yeah, it's the it's the biggest in North America after Edinburgh.
Oh wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, and people come from all over the world to perform here, and Edmonton's really receptive to new ideas and things like that. So it's a great place for me to be as an artist right now and to grow and to learn and to explore opportunities. Mm-hmm. And so I'm not sure what the future holds, but I'm happy being here right now.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense, and I feel like over the past. I don't know how many years, but I feel like it's been growing. Mm-hmm. I feel like it just keeps getting better. Edmonton is really an artsy city. Like, I didn't know until I started getting into it, but there are a lot of people that are amazingly talented in this city that deserve like a spotlight. Like one of them being yourself.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
No, seriously, there's a lot of people here that are amazingly talented and they don't have that spotlight, but there are things going on all the time, and I don't think if you're in it, and if you're not in it, you don't really see it. Like before, I wasn't in it, so I wasn't really like seeing it or finding it. But once I kind of got into the video production side of things and kind of going to events and I started to see like, holy crap, there's a lot going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Edmonton artists are relentless people.
Yeah.
And it's an amazing community to be a part of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Owen, one last question I want to ask you.
What do you got?
What does being on the second floor mean to you? So second floor to us means people who are elevating in their life, people who are elevating in their relationships and their business, and what they want to do and what they want to achieve. So to you in your life, what does the second floor mean to Owen?
The second floor is, I mean, naturally it's the next step.
Yeah.
And like, how do you get to this? How do you get to the second floor? It's the little things every day. It's not making the giant leaps. It's getting up every morning and doing that little bit of work every day consistently.
The little things.
Yeah, the little things add up to the big journeys. And for me especially, and I know a lot of my friends have talked about this. They think that they should be farther along than they are. They criticize themselves for not having some more tangible success than they do right now. But what I do is I look back at where I was 10 years ago, and it's pretty remarkable how far I've come. And I've found that the sentiment is usually the same among anybody I ask the same question to. When you look back 10 years at where you were then versus where you are now, I think they've leaped up a couple steps already.
Yeah. And as being Mr. Owen Bishop, I'm guessing, I was going to ask you where you're next. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? But I know that you already answered that by saying you don't know. However, do you see yourself doing what you're doing right now in 5 or 10 years? Do you want to do this forever? Is that one of those things where you at least want to be in the industry for 5, 10, 15 years from now?
5, 10, 15 years. I see myself doing things that I find interesting and taking part in projects that are going to challenge me and push me. And I don't know what those are going to be. I never considered myself to be a writer. And I never thought that I had anything worth writing down. But the more things artistically that I try, the more avenues that I explore, the more I find that I love it all. So
very interesting. Yeah, so it could be acting, it could be basket weaving.
It could be basket weaving.
You could see Owen doing some basket weaving later on.
The next interview is going to be us live basket weaving over the course of an interview.
Both of us.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Honestly, Owen, thank you, man, for coming. I appreciate you taking your time on a Sunday evening to come through.
My pleasure.
To the second floor.
Thank you for having me out.
The last thing is one thing that you could just leave the audience with. Could be anything. Could be a statement. Could be another act.
One thing. I think if there's something that anybody out there is really relentlessly has something burning inside of them to pursue, go for it. Because the scariest thing I can think of is the regret of not having done something.
I love it. Thank you, man.
Pleasure.
And that's a wrap, ladies and gentlemen. We had Owen Bishop on the second floor. Make sure to follow him. Where can people find you online? Or if they want to get in contact with you?
Best place to contact or find me online is Instagram at owenp.e.bishop. Tip your servers.
That's right. That's a wrap, guys. Thank you.